till it makes you mop your forehead. I've got strength to sail.
Some of the cartoons that kept us glued to the TV on Saturday mornings had a darker side that most people never knew about. Episodes that vanished without explanation. Shorts that studios buried, governments flagged, or networks quietly erased from the schedule, sometimes overnight. These are 25 forgotten banned cartoons you won't believe existed. Number 25, Hittin' the Trail for Hallelujah Land, Looney Tunes / Merry Melodies, 1931. This is where the story of Warner Brothers' most controversial era begins. Hittin' the Trail for Hallelujah Land was released in 1931, directed by Rudolph Ising, and it holds the distinction of being the only black and white short among what would later become known as the Censored 11. It's also considered the least overtly offensive of the group, which says something about what the rest of the list looked like. The Censored 11, a name that came into circulation after Mel Blanc referenced it in his 1979 autobiography, refers to 11 Looney Tunes and Merry Melodies shorts that United Artists pulled from syndication in 1968. These were cartoons so thoroughly built around racial stereotypes of Black Americans that the studio determined no amount of editing could make them acceptable for broadcast. The racial content was not incidental to these shorts.
My silver lining, past the greener twining, I'm hitting the trail for that.
It was the central premise of each one. They have never been officially aired on television since. Warner Brothers has owned them since acquiring the Turner Broadcasting catalog in 1996, and they remain off-limits on every major streaming platform. A planned DVD release through Warner Archive was confirmed in 2010 and canceled sometime before 2018. Number 24, Sunday Go to Meetin' Time, Merry Melodies, 1936. Directed by Friz Freleng in 1936, Sunday Go to Meetin' Time was one of 4 entries in the Censored 11 that Freleng directed, more than any other filmmaker on the list. The short relies on exaggerated caricatures and stereotypes that were distressingly common in American animation of that decade.
And my good son, the best, and wear a great big smile as I take you down the aisle.
And like the rest of the group, it was made during a period when these depictions rarely faced pushback from studios or audiences. Freleng would go on to become one of the most decorated directors in the history of American animation, responsible for iconic Bugs Bunny and Tweety Bird shorts. That makes this chapter of his early career all the more jarring to look back on. Number 23, Clean Pastures, Merry Melodies, 1937. Also directed by Friz Freleng, Clean Pastures managed to get into trouble on 2 separate fronts simultaneously. Beyond its racial caricatures, the short caused significant problems with the Hays Office, Hollywood's moral censorship body of the era, because it parodied religion in ways the censors found unacceptable.
You think a waltz is horrid, and you like your rhythm torrid, till it makes you mop your forehead. I've got...
The short lampooned the concept of heaven in ways that Hays Code enforcers said crossed a serious line. In fact, the short's irreverent treatment of religion caused more friction during production than the film it was loosely based on, a 1936 theatrical production called The Green Pastures, ever did. The Hays Office specifically objected to certain terms and imagery used to depict divine figures. Number 22, Uncle Tom's Bungalow, Merry Melodies, 1937. Tex Avery directed Uncle Tom's Bungalow in 1937, and it was a parody of the famous novel Uncle Tom's Cabin. Avery directed 3 of the 11 shorts on the censored list, which stands alongside Freleng's 4 as the highest counts among the group.
Getting warmer, 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 warmer.
Avery would later become one of the most celebrated and influential directors in the history of animation. His work at both Warner Brothers and MGM set the pace for cartoon comedy for decades. But this early period at the studio produced material that studios today have no interest in revisiting. Number 21, Jungle Jitters, Merry Melodies, 1938. Among all 11 entries in the censored group, Jungle Jitters, directed by Friz Freleng, is widely regarded as the most disturbing. The short involves a traveling salesman who arrives in an African village where the inhabitants are depicted as cannibals. The story's premise, that the salesman must either marry the village queen or be eaten.
What you doing here, young man?
Now, lady, I have here a marvelous device.
Was built entirely around caricatures that critics and animation historians have consistently described as the group's most dehumanizing. It is one of 3 from the censored 11 that Warner Brothers chose not to screen even during the group's lone theatrical presentation in April 2010 at the Egyptian Theater in Hollywood. Number 20, The Isle of Pingo Pongo, Merry Melodies, 1938. Tex Avery directed The Isle of Pingo Pongo in 1938, and it holds an additional piece of trivia within the censored 11. It is the only short on the list to feature Egghead, the character who would evolve into Elmer Fudd. The short is structured as a mock travelogue, the kind of framing device that was common in 1930s short films, but its depictions of African people as primitive caricatures
and the unfortunate native there, but hey, we got a great joke out of it at least.
Placed it firmly among the cartoons that UA pulled from distribution in 1968. Number 19, All This and Rabbit Stew, Merry Melodies, 1941. Directed by Tex Avery, All This and Rabbit Stew is notable for one particular reason within the censored 11. It is the only short in the group to feature Bugs Bunny. In it, Bugs is pursued by a hunter depicted with degrading racial stereotypes. The short was originally created during the character's early years, when the studio was still refining what Bugs Bunny would become. The censored 11 as a whole were withheld not because individual edits could fix them, but because the racial content was so essential to each short's structure that removing it would have rendered the films incomprehensible. That was the studio's own conclusion, not an outside one. Number 18, Coal Black and DeSeven Dwarfs, Merry Melodies, 1943. Coal Black and DeSeven Dwarfs, directed by Bob Clampett, is perhaps the most complicated entry in the censored 11. It is also one of the most talked about. In 1994, a poll of over 1,000 animation professionals voted it among the 50 greatest cartoons ever made. A recognition of its technical craftsmanship and jazz-infused energy that sits uneasily alongside the stereotyping that made it impossible to broadcast. The origin of the short is itself worth knowing. Clampett has said the film came out of a conversation he had with the black cast of Jump for Joy, an all-black stage revue, who asked why there were no black characters in Warner Brothers cartoons. The cast provided voices for the film.
Mean old queen, she shows a fight, but her gal so white is dynamite.
A credit that was legally blocked from appearing on screen due to Mel Blanc's exclusive voice contract with the studio. The short came out in January 1943 and has not aired on television since 1968. It is one of those rare cases in animation history where the craftsmanship and the controversy are completely inseparable. Animation historians have spent decades debating it. Warner Brothers has chosen not to resolve that debate publicly, and the short remains locked away. Number 17, Tin Pan Alley Cats, Merry Melodies, 1943. Bob Clampett directed this 1943 short, which was a parody of jazz pianist Fats Waller, one of the most celebrated musicians in American musical history. The short used Waller's public persona as its jumping-off point, recreating elements of his stage mannerisms and playing style. but paired it with caricatures that placed the film in the same category as the rest of the group. Clampett later argued that the short was made with genuine affection for Waller and that its humor was not meant to demean. The cultural context of 1943 and the context of 2025 are very different places on that question. Number 16, Angel Puss, Looney Tunes, 1944. Angel Puss holds a unique place in the censored 11. It is the only Looney Tunes short in the group. The other 10 are Merry Melodies, and it is the only one directed by Chuck Jones, who would go on to become arguably the most celebrated animation director of the 20th century.
And polish that halo!
Jones was the creator of Roadrunner and Wile E. Coyote and the director of What's Opera, Doc? Widely considered the greatest cartoon ever made. Angel Puss was criticized so strongly upon its release that Herman Hill of the Pittsburgh Courier, an influential black-owned weekly newspaper, wrote an editorial calling for it not to be shown. It was released alongside a short film advocating against prejudice, which made the contrast all the more striking. Number 15, Goldilocks and the Jiven Bears, Merry Melodies, 1944. The last of the censored 11 chronologically, Goldilocks and the Jiven Bears was directed by Friz Freleng and released in September 1944. It holds the distinction of being the only short on the list not produced by Leon Schlesinger.
And me for corn, it's Goldilocks just as sure as you born.
The studio head who had produced all the others. This was because it was the first cartoon completed under his successor, Eddie Selzer. The short's retelling of the Goldilocks fairy tale through the lens of African-American stereotypes earned it its permanent place off American television. In October 2010, Warner Brothers announced at New York Comic Con that all 11 shorts had been fully restored and that a DVD release was being planned through Warner Archive. As of this day, no such release has ever come. Animation historian Jerry Beck confirmed in 2018 that the release had been quietly scrapped. Number 14, Der Fuhrer's Face, Walt Disney Productions, 1943. This one is different from the censored 11 in its origin, but belongs in any serious discussion of banned cartoons.
Nix kann raus! Into the closet!
Der Fuhrer's Face was produced by Walt Disney in 1943 as a wartime propaganda short, featuring Donald Duck trapped in a nightmare where he lives as a worker under the Nazi regime. The film won the Academy Award for Best Animated Short Film at the 1943 ceremony, the only Donald Duck cartoon ever to win the honor. It was voted number 22 on the list of the 50 greatest cartoons of all time in 1994. And yet Disney kept it out of general circulation for decades after the war ended. Its first official home release didn't come until 2004, when it was included in the Walt Disney Treasures, Walt Disney on the Front Lines DVD set.
Here, improve the mind. Heil Hitler!
In 2010, a local court in Kamchatka, Russia actually ruled it extremist material and added it to a national banned list, meaning this Oscar-winning cartoon is technically banned in part of Russia to this day. Number 13, Education for Death, Walt Disney Productions, 1943. Made the same year as Der Fuhrer's Face, Education for Death, The Making of a Nazi is one of Disney's darkest and most uncharacteristic productions. Directed by Clyde Geronimi and based on a 1941 book by Gregor Zeimer, it follows a German boy named Hans from birth through indoctrination in Hitler Youth and into the machinery of war. The short ends not with a punchline, but with soldiers marching into darkness. There is no Disney magic in Education for Death.
Heil Hitler.
Was ist denn schon wieder los mit Hans? Ist denn schon wieder krank? Was hat denn?
It is a cold, deliberate piece of anti-Nazi filmmaking that Disney produced at the explicit request of the US government. By 1943, according to contemporary newspaper reporting, up to 90% of Disney's studio output was being made for government agencies. The studio produced over 400,000 feet of film for the Army, Navy, Air Force, and Treasury during the war years. Like many of the wartime shorts, Education for Death has largely stayed out of general distribution in the decades since the war ended. Too dark to fit alongside the studio's commercial catalog, too historically significant to simply discard. Number 12, Commando Duck, Walt Disney Productions, 1944. In Commando Duck, released in 1944 and also produced for the war effort, Donald Duck destroys an entire Japanese airbase by himself, largely by accident, through a sequence involving a rapidly flooding valley. The short was made during a period when anti-Japanese caricature in American media was essentially government policy, and its depiction of Japanese soldiers reflects the propaganda standards of that era in ways that have kept it from television broadcast in the decades since. Like the other wartime Disney shorts, it exists in a complicated place, made with a specific and time-bound purpose, animated with genuine skill, and now largely unseen by the public that the studio serves. Number 11, Bugs Bunny Nips the Nips, Merry Melodies, 1944. Outside the formal censored 11, Warner Brothers had additional shorts that were effectively removed from circulation for similar reasons. Bugs Bunny Nips the Nips, directed by Friz Freleng, was one of 12 Bugs Bunny shorts known informally as the 12 Missing Hairs, cartoons that Cartoon Network chose not to air during its 2001 June Bugs Marathon because of their offensive content. The short features Bugs stranded on a Pacific island during a Japanese military occupation, and its depictions of Japanese soldiers drew protests from Japanese American groups when VHS copies surfaced in the 1990s re-releases. Those copies were quickly pulled from shelves. Number 10, Electric Soldier Porygon, Pokemon, 1997. In December 1997, a single episode of Pokemon aired once on TV Tokyo in Japan.
Yeah, but this isn't a forest. It's an open field.
It also comes out into open fields to steal food.
And was never broadcast again anywhere in the world. Electric Soldier Porygon, also known as Den-O Senshi Porygon, caused what Japanese media called Pokemon shock. Near the end of the episode, a sequence involving Pikachu's Thunderbolt produced rapidly alternating red and blue strobing lights. The result was that 685 children were transported to hospitals by ambulance that night. Symptoms ranged from headaches and nausea to full seizures, temporary blindness, and loss of consciousness. The series went dark for 4 months while broadcasters and the government worked to understand what had happened.
People of Viridian City will be sorry they ever saw this fate.
When it returned, guidelines for flashing imagery in Japanese television had changed permanently. The cruel irony belongs to Porygon, the Pokemon the episode was named for. Pikachu caused the seizures. Porygon got the blame, or at least the consequences. Porygon and both of its evolutions have never had a featured role in the Pokemon anime since. Number 9. Man's Best Friend, The Ren and Stimpy Show, 1992. The Ren and Stimpy Show was one of the first 3 Nicktoons and spent most of its early run pushing right up against the edge of what Nickelodeon's standards department could tolerate. The episode that finally went too far was Man's Best Friend, a Season 2 segment scheduled to air in 1992. In the episode, Ren and Stimpy are adopted by a strict character named George Liquor, who attempts to discipline them.
Why don't you ask me for a little discipline?
May I have a little discipline?
At the episode's climax, Ren snaps and beats George with an oar, a sequence animated in graphic, slow-motion detail. The episode also included repeated references to tobacco use. Nickelodeon banned the episode before it could air and terminated the contract of series creator John Kricfalusi and his animation studio, Spumsho. The episode didn't reach television until 2003, when it aired on Spike TV as part of the adult-oriented Ren and Stimpy Adult Party cartoon revival. Kricfalusi has stated on multiple occasions that Man's best friend was the direct cause of his firing. Number 8. Leapfrogs, Rocko's Modern Life, 1993. Nickelodeon's Rocko's Modern Life was a show that managed to slip an extraordinary amount of adult humor past network censors under the guise of Australian wallaby cartoon comedy.
Hey, give me that. How about some basketball? That's not boring.
What about lunch?
But one of its very early episodes went too far, even by Rocko's standards. Leapfrogs, part of the show's second episode, involves Rocko's married neighbor, Beverly Bighead, feeling neglected by her husband and then inviting Rocko over, leading to a series of sequences that were clearly, if absurdly, about seduction. Beverly appears naked in the episode, shares an adulterous kiss with Rocko, and the two watch a tape of frog mating together. The episode was banned from reruns after parents complained to Nickelodeon. Its companion episode, Bedfellows, had to be repaired with a different pairing in the rerun schedule because Leapfrogs had simply disappeared from it.
What does this thing do?
Let me tell you something. This machine is worth more than you. You hear me?
The episode was eventually released on DVD, but the experience gave the show's writers a better sense of exactly where the line was. Number 7. Comedians. Beavis and Butthead, 1993. Beavis and Butthead on MTV was built on the premise that these two were so aggressively stupid, they were harmless. The episode Comedians tested that assumption in a way no one expected. In the episode, Beavis burns down a comedy club while the pair attempts stand-up. 1 month after it aired, a 5-year-old boy in Ohio set fire to his family's mobile home, killing his 2-year-old sister. The child's mother told reporters her son had watched Beavis and Butthead. Whether or not the causal link was direct, MTV acted immediately. The episode was pulled and never re-aired.
Cornucopia mean butthole?
It sure does, Beavis.
The series itself was moved from the 7 p.m. slot to a later time, and Beavis's habit of chanting fire was edited out of dozens of other episodes throughout the library. MTV also added disclaimers to the show. The Comedians episode has never returned to any form of broadcast or official release. Number 6. Buffalo Gals, Cow and Chicken, 1998. Cow and Chicken was a Cartoon Network series that occupied a strange space, more raucous and crass than most of its competition, but generally tolerated by the network. The 8th episode of Season 2, Buffalo Gals, changed that calculus. The episode features a women's motorcycle gang invading Cow and Chicken's house. Every member of the gang was coded as a lesbian stereotype through visual gags and innuendo.
You don't even know how to ride a motorcycle. Oh, you will teach me.
That a parent who called Cartoon Network after watching it with her children described as impossible to miss. The network pulled the episode immediately and replaced it in reruns with an episode called Orthodontic Police. It has never returned to the regular rotation. Number 5. Rude Removal, Dexter's Laboratory, 1998. This is one of the stranger entries on this list because Rude Removal was never actually aired in the first place, at least not on television in 1998 when it was produced. The episode features Dexter creating a machine that strips the rudeness out of himself and Dee Dee, producing foul-mouthed clones as a byproduct. Every offensive word from the clones is bleeped.
Me is my charming sister Dee Dee. Charmed. Ah, fuck off. Oh. Oh dear!
But Cartoon Network decided the constant bleeping itself was too much and pulled the episode before broadcast. It screened at a handful of animation festivals over the years and briefly appeared on YouTube. It didn't reach a wider audience until 2013, when Adult Swim aired it, 15 years after it was made. For most of its existence, it was one of the more famous lost episodes in American animation. Number 4, Barbacore, Dexter's Laboratory / Dial M for Monkey, 2000. Embedded within Dexter's Laboratory was a segment called Dial M for Monkey, which featured Dexter's lab monkey Monkey as a superhero. In 2000, one of those segments, Barbacore, was banned almost immediately after it aired.
We will begin your testing as soon as you...
The segment introduced a villain called the Silver Spooner, a direct parody of Marvel Comics' Silver Surfer. The problem was twofold. Marvel's legal team objected to the unauthorized use of their character, and the Silver Spooner was also widely perceived as a gay stereotype, which drew additional complaints. The segment was removed from all reruns and later from the DVD release and streaming versions of the series. It was replaced with a standard Dexter's Laboratory segment called Dexter's Lab, a Story. Number 3, See Me, Feel Me, Know Me, The Powerpuff Girls, 2004. The Powerpuff Girls ran on Cartoon Network from 1998 to 2005 and was largely beloved. But one episode, a musical special called See Me, Feel Me, Know Me, was quietly removed before most viewers ever got to see it. The episode was a full musical in which a gnome offers the girls peace in exchange for their powers, only for the town to fall into what the show depicted as communist control. Series creator Craig McCracken later explained the ban publicly. The network's concern wasn't the political themes. It was that destroyed buildings in the episode contained metal beams that, in the network's view, resembled crosses, making the imagery look like religious iconography. One of the background characters was also said to resemble Jesus. Cartoon Network pulled the episode. It eventually surfaced on the complete series DVD, but was absent from most streaming versions. Number 2, Mass Transit Trouble. Sonic the Hedgehog, 1993. The ABC animated series based on Sonic the Hedgehog.
This hedgehog? Wait till you see what Dr. Robotnik has in store for you!
Not to be confused with the lighter DIC Saturday morning version, ran from 1993 to 1994. One episode, Mass Transit Trouble, involved Dr. Robotnik planting time bombs in transit hubs across Mobius to cripple the planet's transportation systems. The episode was pulled twice from circulation on different occasions and was never included on VHS releases, making it effectively inaccessible for years. The first pull came after the 1995 Oklahoma City bombing, when networks began reviewing content that could be read as celebrating or depicting terrorism. The second came after September 11, 2001. The episode eventually surfaced on DVD, but only because enough fans had recorded it off-air to keep copies alive. Number 1, The Legend of Dratini. Pokemon, 1997. The world knows the Electric Soldier Porygon incident as the most famous banned Pokemon episode.
Is that Brock? Huh? Hey! Brock!
But The Legend of Dratini, which aired only in Japan in 1997, has its own reason for never making it to Western shores, and it has nothing to do with flashing lights. The episode takes place in the Safari Zone, a standard Pokemon setting. What set it apart was guns. A lot of guns. Characters are threatened at gunpoint on 7 separate occasions throughout the episode. At one point, Ash has a revolver pointed directly at his face. The episode was deemed unacceptable for international broadcast and was never dubbed into any other language. The result was a significant plot hole in the English language version of the series.
All right, so Ash is the winner!
The Safari Zone was referenced in later episodes but never properly established, because the episode that introduced it simply didn't exist for Western audiences. The history of animation is much stranger and more complicated than the clean, nostalgic version most of us grew up with. Cartoons have been banned for being too violent, too sexual, too racist, too politically inconvenient, and, in one unforgettable case, for literally sending hundreds of children to the hospital in a single night. Every era had its lines, and every era had cartoonists who either stumbled across them or went looking for them on purpose. Some of these bans have lasted decades with no sign of changing. Others eventually found their way to audiences through DVD releases or the internet. A few may never be seen on official broadcast again. If you found this video interesting, a like and a subscribe genuinely help this channel keep making content like it. And if there's a banned cartoon, a forgotten episode, or a piece of animation history you think deserves its own video, drop it in the comments. There are plenty more where these came from. Thanks for watching. We will see you in the next one. Same channel, same time.